Hello everyone and welcome to my review of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. This is a game I invested a ton of time in and now feel like I can form a pretty good review on all that went on during the game. I will be reviewing several key points, so stay tuned to hear if buying Assassin's Creed Valhalla is worth the money. Alright, the first thing we're going to start talking about is the graphics of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Absolutely breathtaking landscapes. You travel to 3 different continents in this game, just so you know, and everything is stunning, to the huge fjords in Norway, to the castle ruins and Roman ruins in England, and Vinland in North America is also absolutely striking. I really love this game. The water textures are beautiful, and even the people are beautiful. When you look at the cutscenes, you can see even the pores on the main character's face most of the time, which blows my mind. The movement of the characters is also very believable, very natural. You think you're actually watching people speak when they do that. So I think that's wonderful. You know, there were a few rough points because the game is so large, but they were minimal. I felt very immersed in the story and I never felt out of place about it. I really was visually taken in by Assassin's Creed Valhalla. So in my book, that gets a 10 out of 10. Alright, so now we're going to talk about the game's overall atmosphere. When we look at the story of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, though the ending was a bit confusing and could have been better in my book, I overall enjoyed the story. When we look at the side quests and doing what Assassin's Creed has always done best, implementing historical figures into gameplay, really took care of the game. Like I said, the ending was a bit underwhelming and strange for me, but I overall still loved it. If we look at, I'm comparing Assassin's Creed 2, which was the last one I really tried to play. This is so much of a better format for these games in my opinion. The weather changes all the time, you know, which kind of is a shout out a little bit in my opinion to Witcher 3, which is great and really fun. I feel like the immersion is there, and they also don't take themselves too seriously. I got a unicorn boat with rainbows shooting out to go raid abbeys and trap people up to take their money. I mean, that's just great. The NPC dialogue, I put this down as a note. I think it was good, but it did get redundant. Like if you were in an area a little bit too long, it'll get annoying after a while, and it makes you want to kill NPCs, which can lead to your desynchronization, which isn't good. The menu elements are really nice. I'd say it's a little bit overwhelming. Like when you first take a look at your skill tree and everything, it's so big, it's almost scary. But once you get used to it, I think it's great. I think the music in this game was great, and I know they did a really good job. I even saw on the Ubisoft website several times they used, you know, Norse Scandinavian people to actually do the music to get as an authentic a sound as they could, just like again in Witcher 3. The sound effects were quite good. I love the enemies. You know, there's a little bit of a fantastical element dropped, like if we compare it to Skyrim or Witcher 3, because it is, you know, historical fiction, but they do a great job with some side quests that let you have some of that fantastical stuff, and I do think that the warriors and everything they put you against is really good, and your combat against other people is super great. The voice acting in this game I thought was excellent. I have played games before and you almost get annoyed with the characters and you feel nothing for them, right? Because you're like, that smells like some bullshit to me, right, when they speak. But the voice acting in this was great. And they also did a great job of making sure to use Scandinavian people for the voice acting, and the emotions were all there as well. So I felt like the voice acting and the emotions came hand in hand, and because they had such good voice actors on their team, it was much easier to relate to the characters. I actually think they helped carry the story that much more, and you felt that much more immersed in the game. So voice acting and emotions and all of the great stuff I brought up before, I would give it a 9 out of 10, just because the story wasn't perfect, for sure. I had my qualms, but overall really liked it. The next aspect we're going to look at is the gameplay of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. This was one of my favorite features of the game. There's so much to do, and if you run out of things to do, you can go find people and get more stuff to do. Everything from the side quests to the contracts is so fun. If I have to choose a favorite feature of this particular game, it would probably be the Abbey raids. It is so much fun, and it feels so damn cool to pull up with your boat, with your crew, and raid some abbeys. It is, oh my gosh, so much fun. And the axes, I know, I heard one of my friends say that he doesn't quite like the combat as much because it isn't as stealthy as past games. I mean, this is much more of a warrior type gameplay, so, you know, if you lean towards that way, I totally understand, but I loved how brash it was. I loved how in your face it was. You know, if you snuck around and someone found you, you just kill them. It's not a big deal, and I absolutely love that. Like, straight up game spirit Viking. So damn cool. That being said, I had a couple of different play strategies I really liked. Initially, I was doing double axes, and then I realized how awesome it was to have axe and a shield, and eventually, once I got my skill tree up enough, I was swinging around a Dane axe with my heavy shield and felt pretty invincible. I think you get to learn strategy. The cool thing about the skill tree too is they let you completely empty and redo your skill tree. Like if you're fighting an enemy and they're, you know, bringing the fire damage, you can literally drop all the stuff, like if you know that's how the battle is going to be, and completely redo that. And in other games, as probably a lot of you know, that is not as easy to do. So I think that's really cool that they encourage experimentation, and they'll even say in the game how to do that. The other cool thing is it feels like there's so many stories within stories within stories, because you get your contracts from Rada, you have the Secret Order, you have your own storyline worrying about your fate with your brother Sigurd, and you have the main storyline of trying to make sure that all of England is allied with you and that you prosper in this new land that you came to. It's really, really neat. Like I said, the weapons are really great. I ended up with my ranged weaponry. I actually stuck with a light bow, which is kind of crazy just because it was so quick. I really liked how it went. And they also implemented some mystery solving, much like Geralt of Rivia does. So like if you're in gameplay and something crazy happens, they'll have you investigate so that you can trace your way back, and you have the sight of Odin to do so. I also, like I said before, I didn't love the ending, but the fusion between the simulated world, the real worlds, the Vikings living in England, the historical fiction coming into play, meeting these characters that are so legendary, it was absolutely awesome. One of the drawbacks I do have to say about the gameplay though is your dialogue options. You may think you have a choice, but you rarely do. You know, games like Mass Effect, or once again Witcher 3. Witcher 3 is one of my favorite games, if you couldn't tell. There are huge implications for the things you say and do. This game, it's kind of presented that way, but it's not necessarily the truth. And I know this is, you know, a new way that they do their games now, but it did feel a little pointless because it didn't really change the gameplay as much. I know that there's technically a bad ending, but it's nothing on the scale, you know, that like BioWare and The Witcher had. That's one thing. The maps are gigantic. You have so many hours of gameplay. It is absolutely ridiculous. You know, you can go and do all the world's mysteries. You can go and talk to your cartographer in Ravensthorpe and get all sorts of new stuff. You can raid all the abbeys you can. They have their in-game Orlog, which is a dice game, and initially I was annoyed by it, but then I came to really like it. Now, I am not the best Orlog player. I have a very basic understanding of it, but I really enjoyed it and think it would be fun as just like a standalone game even, because it's that cool. So it was really great. I ended up spending a lot of time on my mount, so for that I would recommend the Berserker DLC just because of the fun skin you get on that. But you end up I ended up ramping up my mount pretty quick because you realize how much time you have to spend on it because the maps are so huge. The next aspect we're going to look at is the content of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I put in roughly 132 hours into the game. According to the website How Long to Beat, the main story would cost you 53 hours if you just focused on that. The main plus extras could have you sitting at 86.5 hours. On average, all styles is 92.5, and the completionist is at 128 hours. So I guess I was definitely playing on the completionist level, but like I said, I was enjoying the hell out of this game. I enjoyed the gameplay. I raided every single abbey possible. I had a great time. There's new DLC that's coming out within the next couple of months, which will definitely draw me back, but I've seen people, have kind of moved on a little bit. There's new games out there and so forth. So, but like I said, with the completionist range, there's so much to do. If you're really into the gameplay and everything, it's definitely there. The replayability of this game, I think, is there, but it's not as recurrent as ones with a stronger storyline, say Mass Effect or Dragon Age or Witcher 3 or, Skyrim. I would say once I get all the DLC and stuff, this will be once every couple years. So I think the replayability is there, but I don't feel like it'll call back to me as much as other games with more solid storylines do. So unfortunately, that is a downplay of it. But the journey I took to get there, the history I was immersed in, all of that made it absolutely fun. The DLC along with that, I think they've been doing a really good job. Ubisoft has. Now they do have that microtransactions crap going on, but they have really cool armor you can get. You can get the Jotunheim skin. They do have a season pass going and all that sorts of stuff. And like I said, they did a really good job with the mythology, but the replayability isn't as strong as other games, though it is present.
Today. Oh my God, what is that? Oh my God, what is that?
So my final summary of Assassin's Creed Valhalla is, I think it's an absolutely wonderful game. I enjoyed the combat so much. I enjoyed the history so much. I loved the landscape. I loved the majority of the characters you interacted with. I loved the history surrounding the characters you interacted with. I liked building up everything there. I felt very immersed most of the time. The downfalls of it, like I said, the replayability is lacking because the story isn't as strong as other RPGs out there. So while it's a great game, it's a journey I'm only willing to take every couple of years. But is it worth it? In my opinion, 100%. If you're willing to really put in the hours and go on a bit of a journey, especially if you're a single player RPG fan like I am, like that is my favorite type of game. I hate PvP. Sometimes I'll do co-op games with my friends, but that's not my main go-to. Single player RPGs give me that all damn day. And I think with Assassin's Creed reformatting of the games, these last couple of games, I think they're really going places. I think this game is worth it. Just know I don't think it's necessarily going to be a classic, but I do think it's going to be a gateway for the Assassin's Creed series to continue to build on, and they're just going to get stronger and stronger. The verdict is yes, get Assassin's Creed Valhalla and hardcore, parkour all over the place. Thank you so much for listening to my review. I hope you have a great